Welcome back to If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. This evening I thought I'd try something a little bit different. I'm trying to switch some things up in this podcast and in my life as I have been the past several months. As those of you who listen on a regular basis know, I love fairy tales and I love poems and I love sort of dramatizing those. But I've been working on the Practical Distillers and Alchemist Almanac 2027 and a couple of other writing projects. And amongst that work, I've been writing a few little, Hoosier Black Forest fairy tales, if you will, and poems that have to do with magic as I see it here in the Black Forest of southern Indiana. And one thing that I realized not long at all, after starting to ride my bicycle and try to take a little better care of myself for me and my family and focus a little more on my spirituality, is that if you want to live somewhere magic, you have to help make it magic. And how do you do that? You speak it, you breathe it into existence, and you pay attention to all the things that surround you at all times, because magic is everywhere. So tonight, I want to share a little bit of my magic with you. I consider myself a storyteller. I always have. But I feel like things are maybe coming together in my life in such a way that I can actually do what I've always wanted to do. To tell a cohesive and concise story. To entertain and to inform you. And maybe spread a little bit of that Black Forest of southern Indiana magic throughout the rest of the land. Because in times like these, we need that magic. We need those stories. Our folk tales are dying. Our traditions are dying. It's on us to keep them alive and to speak them, to breathe them into existence. This show's in memory of all those who we've lost. We love you, and we remember. Being of good standing, as a brethren and lodge master of Les Trois Corbeaux, I feel inclined to share my recent windfall and abundance amongst my community near Bexmill, Indiana. Of course, as with all that I do, there is a story. For many years, I, Alan Bishop, have maintained the privilege of representing the more risque elements regarding the history of this spectacular place, including occupying the role of Reverend Thomas Green himself, a spirit particularly and peculiarly close to my heart. Some time ago, a sister, in service of the mill, was heard to quietly remark, "Where that stuff they make at the mill goes, no one knows. It's here and then it's gone." I thought this to be as good a time as any to share what has become of that which is made at the mill with you, my friends, and to explain the long lapse of time from then until now. Let me start by explaining that it is now my understanding that time, in that other world, the one inhabited of course by the Fey folk, would appear not to work the same as our concept of the ticking seconds, minutes, hours, days, and years. Now, I know after reading that last sentence, you're already questioning the lens by which I view my reality. But rest assured that I am truthful and sober. This is thanks to my newfound bicycling habit. It turns out it's very hard, improbable though not impossible, to pedal a bike in a safe manner while inebriated, and even less safe to pedal the morning after, so just bear with me. Some decade and a handful of years ago, a personal friend, a man of some renown locally and abroad by the name of John A. Bowman, shared a petite miracle with me. He revealed the existence of a fountain, all silver and gold and shimmering, hidden away in our Black Forest from those who would disabuse it. Of this fountain, he revealed that its location was not only clandestine, but could move from time to time and place to place to prevent those who are impure of heart from ever ascertaining its location. As if that wasn't enough of a preternatural revelation, he next revealed the supernatural ability of this baptismal pool to take that which is limited and turn it into that which is infinite. That last line was in fact whispered into the wind, which he disappeared into, the smell of brimstone lingering long thereafter. I searched for many years for this fountain until I remembered where I ascertained its hiding spots. Upon approaching those holy and healing waters, I was startled by a little man who seemed to appear from nowhere and from nothing. Startled not just by his sudden appearance or diminutive size, but by the fact that I never heard him for the bells on his boot buckles and the stream of incessant hiccups by which he delivered his dialogue. "Be you of pure heart?" "Yes," I replied. "Be you of sound mind?" "Well, there's this fountain and..." "Close enough." I did question, given the German nature of our region, if the little man was a sprudel, which seemed to redden the little man's cheeks and snaz more than they already were against the green of his vestments and hat, which was accompanied by his shouting a stream of obscenities and the noun Clurichon, kind of a drunken leprechaun that frequents wine and spirit storage cellars, as I've since gathered. The little man informed me that for the cost of an apple and share of the spoils to come, that he would allow me to use this magical artisanal well. I simply had to pour in the existing wares made from the local apples and a bit of Oregon Springs and Click's cave water on the grounds of Hell's Half Acre, allow it to mix and mingle and become proper aquavitae, and the little man would bottle it up and deliver it when the proper moment had arrived. What to my surprise that many years would pass before I saw or sipped the spoils of our labor, or heard the bells on his buckles, or his half-drunk cackle again. Many times sitting in my abode or working in my yard, I might swear to have heard a familiar hiccup from my cellar door, but upon close inspection all that was ever there was a large toad, fattened on sugar ants, themselves fattened on sugar, from some unknown source. Strange how a croak ain't so different from a hiccup when all you have is time on your hands. I had chalked the whole thing up to some sort of fever dream or hallucination until Friday evening of last, when I was startled by the ringing of bells, the clanking of glass, and a creepy green light emanating from the said same cellar. "That is a hell of a toad," I exclaimed, running like an excited child on Christmas morning. Out the door, down the steps, around the house, and into the depths. There sat a number of glimmering bottles, glass like silver and liquid like gold. Sweet ambrosia, I thought. A faint hiccup was heard outside the open window opposite the door. The little Clurichon, John Bowman, and Reverend Green had finally delivered. And though I can only speculate on the alchemical process undertaken in that special spring, I feel like I am well qualified. It would appear, to one an expert such as myself, that the sugar in the cider underwent a process of rapid degeneration into alcoholic fervor, becoming what we may call a strong cider. The cedar boughs used to add flavor, becoming subdued and harmonizing therein. The cider then becoming a volatile element, was taken into the depths of the well, where via heat and pressure, it was of course evaporated and forced upward to the surface, and converted via condensation like rain to a liquid as pure as angels' tears. It is herein that the little man barreled it up, first in fine French oak, which he later decanted and added dried apples of the forbidden type for a time prior to moving it to a cask made of fine American white oak, properly air-cured, toasted, and charred, and of course from there it was delivered upon a high hill where it was protected, in fact mothered and nurtured by a great golden eagle, just as she would her own egg, for a many number of years before the Clurichon swapped it out with another cask yet to come. And to boot, it seems to have been delivered with 110 horsepower and unfiltered. The translation? Some sediment is natural. It won't fix what's wrong, but it'll make you forget about it for a little while. And if there's a pecker gnat in it, don't worry. He won't drink but just a little. Aunt Dorse with her basket, her little blue bonnet, and spindle of red thread in her pocket. Take but a step at a time, collect what is mine, from the brambles to the walnut. Old Uncle Alfred with his watch, which he sigiled with a cross. Old iron nail in his pocket. Take but a step at a time. Collect what is mine, from the hickory to the hazel. I learned all about morals from my time hunting morels, about old people and the ways that sustained them. I kept my eyes open and my listening on point to the words that they were saying. About how everyone's got a job to do and some type of spiritual calling. How the world ain't all it seems and it don't float on hopes and dreams. And how home will always come a-calling. That the skill that they taught could get lost in the lots, but not if you visited often. And how one day the world might stray, but their knowledge would be for saving. That which means most when illusion gives up the ghosts, and all that's left is for sustaining. That the most basic of things may be worth luxurious claims to those who don't know these sayings. That what matters most is that which gives hope when it's thundering and raining. To keep a sober mind at important times when the light might seem to be waning. To take but a step at a time, to collect what is mine, from the hedges to the locust. In the black forest, where the highway meets the sky, the hills cascade with shadows, cast by leaves of autumn high. The moon full and low, her face is all aglow, lights the way for the travelers weary for their home. Traversing creeks and valleys, the crows keeping tally, the wilted corn flowers, signs of nature's hours, the dove turns to mourning. For as the frost does now blanket, ending summer's fragile banquet, casting gray and gloomy, rainy and so dreary, the shortening of the days brings the deer to season, as snow shall soon be the reason for the ending of this season. There once was a sovereign man, living quite content with the land. On the edge of town, no one around, and rarely sought a helping hand. His appearance was quite raggedy, as though he'd survived a heap of tragedy. Yet what no one knew was this was no loon, but instead a man of the moon. His life was one with nature, from which he made the creature. Indeed, a well-used copper pot. He heated quite a lot with grains and fruit and gathered things, and all that makes for saving. He worked with the signs in the heavens, and he sang with the birds in the hedges. He stirred by the light of his lucky stars, distilling such powers as Mars, his tinctures all well known. By luck and Mercury, he struck his gold, but his treasures were well beyond the material. What he made was special, no pact be made with the devil. It opened doors and healed old wounds, and was good for all that ails you. No tax he paid, as only barter was made. A sip for a trade made his needs go away, and though his mortal days were numbered, his light would be unencumbered. For as death brought slumber, his name would still be murmured from this day and onward, by those who do right, by their daemons, and practice right and true, his art and animism too, that they might derive the light to share with me and you. As one is apt to do, we partook one day in a journey of discovery of old towns and their people, myths and legends and folklore, the gray skies of the Ohio River Valley casting shadows and shapes upon the hollowed ground, that which held the feet of the living aloft and the bones of the dead below. Memento mori, remember you too will die. I was always told as a curious child, you don't know if you don't look, and you will never know if you don't try. But wasn't it curiosity that killed the cats? Was the cat also black? Did it cross your path? A curious jinx if I do say so myself. Clearly my forebears weren't thinking of the curiosity of a child growing up in the crosshairs of death. Shall it be the icy creek, the busy highway, or the locomotive? And yet, I thrive. The trees and stones of the old cemetery spoke in hushed tones, creaking and cawing, or perhaps it was the crows cawing. At least I hope it was. Are we disturbing them? Asked the tow-headed girl, with eyes of turquoise. She sparkled, she always does, full of life and light, a stark contradiction of current surroundings. Her mother, a witch, the good kind of course, and of the highest order, studied the stones intently. She too is glimmery about her persons, but in the way that one who has truly found her calling can be. Contentment shone on her face, happy to experience this little jaunt with family and abdicate normal responsibilities in favor of adventure. The juxtaposition of life and death, and all that philosophical positioning rambled on by her husband set aside. We are our own tribe, and we have rules. Heads covered and ironclad. Always shut the gates. Listen more than you speak. The hedges have secrets. And always, well, always bring an apple. They like apples. What we seek is a maker of spirits, long since a spirit himself. John de Tra, the famed absinthe distiller of Vivi, Indiana, a bespoke rarity for his time, who brought the secret swamp water of the hedge witch with him from the canton. We know he is here, but we don't know where. And it would seem that pouring that same ardent spirit wasn't enough yet to coax him from his slumber. Necromancy is hard at best. Though we pride ourselves on our ability to speak to spirit of all manner, spirit must be willing to have such conversations. The golden-haired girl questions our ability. She, though vivid with imagination, has not yet made the connection between imagination and the imaginal, but she carries gifts that surface as appropriate. She suggests we simply ask for help. We consult her skeleton key, a talisman of the trade and tradition, sufficient for unlocking hidden passages. We notice a tomb much maligned by time and weather, unvisited by loved ones in many decades, and who likely now lay in state in the same sacred spaces. Above ground, its crumbling brick structure withers and barely holds aloft the beautifully inscribed horizontal table stone above. Upon this stone lay an altar cloth, held in place by another broken stone, tattered and torn by the weather, but certainly used. Other signs of Solomonic superstition were to be noticed, in the form of an offering bowl and a cluster of plastic grapes on a grave appropriate to them. Strangeness doth abound. One must simply observe. The air changes. A surge of electrostatic energy envelops us. To our north is a dark forest, the domain of the old ones that sometimes share their secrets. As if on cue from the place where the liminal boundary of the burying ground meets the spirit of the trees along a singing creek, emerges a shape, all black and concealed in unnatural shadow, the type that absorbs light. 2 bright green predatory eyes, giving hint to the shape of this familiar, this messenger of the dead. As the shape takes form, the image of a rather large feral cat does emerge. All black everything, except for those eyes, emerald green and shimmering, his mane a fluff of silky obsidian shade, his hair like that of a Maine Coon, and well groomed to boot. He seems content that this is where he needs to be right now, as he sits and stares with jilted determination in our general direction. His tail betrays his annoyance, and the tip beats the ground like a judge with a gavel. No domestic distinction such as a collar or tag in sight, and yet by all appearances he is well fed, perhaps even pampered. Although unspoken, it becomes clear his name is Felix. And why? Well, because of Felix, it seems, with no certain particular things. Every necropolis has a mayor, after all, and this one is no exception. In fact, if anything, he is exceptional. His gaze is uncomfortable and judgmental, but we know what he's looking at and why. One must pass this test, or be forbidden to find what is sought forever. Yes, Felix, the maybe friendly, feral feline familiar. The witch and wizard exchange curious glances. Are you seeing this? Indeed, she says. That can't be a coincidental cat, can it? No, certainly incidental, she replied. Indeed, in unison. The cat's eyes fixate upon my being. As to my bewilderment, he begins to speak, and in the tongue of the canton at that. Is it the Tra you're looking for in communion? The one whose father drowned in the great river, and whose brother met his fate because of a fatal fall? The high strangeness of the speaking cat, offset only by the fact that his tongue is one I do not speak, and yet I know exactly of what he questions. The one who brought Mother Henriade's elixir from that old past to this fertile Cardinal Valley? That elixir that takes the ordinary and makes it extraordinary? The opener of the mouth and the mind to what is possible in this sublunar landscape. The puzzlement on my face was obvious. The cat slowing the flicking of his tail to more of a tremor. A simple yes would suffice, as it is but few who speak to spirits and who know of the secrets hidden in the hedges, and of those less that have ears for hearing or eyes to see, and that know that nothing worth knowing comes easy or free, but that like the wind which shakes the leaves, and who moves sight and shape unseen, the veiled world is only half a breath away from everywhere that you've ever been. John de Tra, who once was and forever will be, sends this shape to one who sees, that his name linger on tongues, centuries after his work was done. For none is dead as long as their name abides. The lips of the living such power provides. Spoken and spat, sweet and true, his work lived long through the efforts of you. At this, the cat sauntered towards a small knoll and a stone weathered and old, glancing over his shoulder with those big green eyes, before disappearing into a preternatural fog. Beneath the land where he stood, the grave of John Detraw. Welcome back to If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. This evening I thought I'd try something a little bit different. I'm trying to switch some things up in this podcast and in my life, as I have been the past several months. As those of you who listen on a regular basis know, I love fairy tales and I love poems and I love sort of dramatizing those. But I've been working on the Practical Distillers and Alchemist Almanac 2027 and a couple of other writing projects. And amongst that work, I've been writing a few little, Hoosier Black Forest fairy tales, if you will, and poems that have to do with magic as I see it here in the Black Forest of southern Indiana. And one thing that I realized not long ago, not long at all, after starting to ride my bicycle and try to take a little better care of myself for me and my family and focus a little more on my spirituality, is that if you want to live somewhere magic, you have to help make it magic. And how do you do that? You speak it, you breathe it into existence, and you pay attention to all the things that surround you at all times, because magic is everywhere. So tonight, I want to share a little bit of my magic with you. I consider myself a storyteller. I always have. But I feel like things are maybe coming together in my life in such a way that I can actually do what I've always wanted to do. To tell a cohesive and concise story. To entertain and to inform you. And maybe spread a little bit of that Black Forest of southern Indiana magic throughout the rest of the land. Because in times like these, we need that magic. We need those stories. Our folk tales are dying. Our traditions are dying. It's on us to keep them alive and to speak them, to breathe them into existence. This show's in memory of all those who we've lost. We love you, and we remember. Being of good standing, as a brethren and lodge master of Les Trois Corbeaux, I feel inclined to share my recent windfall and abundance amongst my community near Bexmill, Indiana. Of course, as with all that I do, there is a story. For many years, I, Alan Bishop, have maintained the privilege of representing the more risque elements regarding the history of this spectacular place, including occupying the role of Reverend Thomas Green himself, a spirit particularly and peculiarly close to my heart. Some time ago, a sister, in service of the mill, was heard to quietly remark, "Where that stuff they make at the mill goes, no one knows. It's here and then it's gone." I thought this to be as good a time as any to share what has become of that which is made at the mill with you, my friends, and to explain the long lapse of time from then until now. Let me start by explaining that it is now my understanding that time, in that other world, the one inhabited of course by the Fey folk, would appear not to work the same as our concept of the ticking seconds, minutes, hours, days, and years. Now, I know after reading that last sentence, you're already questioning the lens by which I view my reality.